So, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Today, we'll continue from where we left off yesterday. Yesterday, we spoke about, just give me a second, we spoke about introduction to business basically, and we focused on a lot of things. We covered a lot of things yesterday. Um, Let me try to share my screen so that we are on the same page. Just give me a second. There we go. um Yesterday we focused on chapter 1, which was the dynamics of business and economics, and pretty much we talked about, we introduced what business is, we talked about what goods are, we spoke about what services are, and we talked about profit and loss. We wanted to talk about stakeholders and economic systems. So that moves us on to chapter 2 today, where we are going to talk about business ethics and social responsibility. And in this topic, we will be able to explain what ethics is, corporate social responsibility, sustainability, and business responsibility. So I'll just stop this for now, and then we will do like sort of a revision from yesterday so that we are all on the same page, so that you don't get confused. So yesterday we spoke about a few things, and just to recap, I believe, we spoke about introduction to business, of course, which is the name of our course as well. And we went on to talk about what is business. And basically, business is any organization, any platform which sells goods and services to make a profit. We have for profit organizations, we have also for non-profit organization. And the examples would be something like Xiaomi, which sells goods, and something like Haidi Lao, which sells services. We want on to talk about goods and services, where we said goods are tangible things, things that you can touch, things that you can own, things that you can take home. So basically, something that you can feel, something that is tangible. And services, we said these are things that you don't own, things that you pay for, and they're done at the same time that you pay for. For example, a haircut. Another thing is that you pay somebody to do an action for you is maybe going to a restaurant and ordering food. So these are things that you cannot touch. You cannot take them home. You cannot own them, right? We talked about profit and loss, where we said profit is positive, which is good for the business. It's good for anything because it makes you invest. It gives you money to invest, to grow, to expand your business. So what is profit? Profit is when your revenue is greater than your costs. And we also spoke about loss, which is in red at the moment because it is not good for the business. If you keep running losses and losses, you end up in bankruptcy and closing the business eventually. So, what is loss? Loss, this is when your costs are greater than your revenue. And we talked about for profit and for non profit organizations and businesses. For profit organizations, they have an aim to make money, to, for investments, to share the money among us, their shareholders and their investors. Whereas for non-profit businesses, their main aim is to help people, their communities, or to further on supply or generate income, for generate revenue for some of these charitable organizations or programs that they are running. And then we talked about 4 factors of production, which are basically needed to sustain a business, to run a business, to be able to produce the goods and services, where we looked at land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. We went on further to talk about business functions. We spoke about management, we spoke about operations and what they do, we spoke about marketing, finance, and research and development. And lastly, we spoke about stakeholders, which are the people that are directly or indirectly affected by the decisions that an organization make. These people can also influence some of those decisions. For example, if the customers think that the business is not good, it's not helping the community, they can decide not to buy. So the customer needs, the business needs to put into perspective the customer needs, things like, the government, the owners, the suppliers. So we spoke about stakeholders like employees, the customers, suppliers, the government, which regulates or puts laws in place. We also spoke about the owners, who in most cases are hoping to make more and more interest, so that they can cash out a lot of money. And just a quick check, you should be able to define what a service is at the moment. You should also be able to name the four factors of production, as well as which department advertises products. So we will move on to today's class without wasting more time. So just give me a second. I'll open today's PPT and we go from there. Today we'll focus on a topic which is very, very important in this day and age, especially in 2026, because a lot of companies are following this. So this topic is called business ethics and social responsibility. So what is business ethics and social responsibility? This is something that we're going to cover today. And like always, what is this module going to produce? What our outcomes after learning this module? We should be able to explain the importance of business ethics and corporate social responsibility. We should be able to differentiate between ethical and legal behavior. Also, being able to explain the concept of business ethics and outline the steps companies take to encourage ethical behavior. We should also be able to identify common ethical challenges faced by organizations and as well as explain the concept of corporate social responsibility. So what is ethical and legal behavior? Our outcomes under ethical and legal behavior, things that we hope to learn, things that we should learn, is being able to differentiate between ethical and legal behavior. We should also be able to define ethical behavior as well as what is legal behavior. And at the same time, we should be able to differentiate between ethical behavior and legal behavior, like which one is which, what are the differences between the two. So let's look here. We have a very colorful visual, which is talking about ethics and law in business. So business must do what is right, which is what we call ethical, and what is required, which is what we call legal. So basically, doing the right thing is what we call ethical, and doing the required thing is what we call legal. So we have on this side, we have the green box, which is basically ethical behavior, in other words, ethics. And on the other side here, we have legal behavior, which is basically the laws, right? So let's look at ethical behavior. What is ethical behavior? Ethical behavior means doing what is right and fair, even when no one is watching or when no law says you have to. So this is doing what you believe or what you think is right, even when there's no law on the wall or when there's nobody watching. The key points under ethical behavior would be based on the values and principles, right? So this is based basically on your values and the principles that you might carry on day-to-day basis. It's not written in law, which means there is no law that says you have to do this, but this is just something that you have to know. This can be different though in different cultures, because we all have different upbringings, different backgrounds. We were raised in different countries, were raised by different parents. So the ethical similar characteristics might be different from one person to another. The reason why they're so important is because they can build trust and good reputation with your colleagues, your workmates, your manager, your customers, your stakeholders, and pretty much everyone that is involved in an organization or outside an organization. It is a choice, like I said, because we all have different upbringing. So ethics comes down to a choice. You can decide whether to do the right thing or you can decide whether to do the wrong thing. Examples of ethical behavior would be a company admits making a mistake and apologizes to its customers. So let's say when a company makes a mistake, it admits it and then it apologizes to its customers. An employee does not share his friends or her friends' private information to other people. This is doing the right thing, right? You are being ethical. A business chooses to protect the environment even if it costs more. So they know that, yes, we are losing money, but this is the right thing to do because we operate in this environment and it's a community that belongs to certain people that live here. So we are benefiting. Even if we lose money, we are doing the right thing. On the other hand, legal behavior, which are pretty much laws, means following the laws and rules of a country. So these are written, these are there, these are specified. The government has already decided this. These can change or they can improve from time to time. And the key points under legal behavior are: it's written by the government, must be followed because it is written. It is same for everyone. It's not different. It doesn't matter. Your background is different. It doesn't matter you have money or you don't have money. Laws are laws, and they must be followed by everyone. Breaking the law in most cases leads to punishment. It doesn't matter whether you are a manager or whether you are a low level employee. Breaking the law always leads to a punishment. It is not a choice, it is required. So this is not a choice, unlike ethical behavior, right? This is something that is required. And examples, it is illegal to steal from a store, to take something that you haven't paid for. This is illegal anywhere you go. It doesn't matter where you grew up, who raised you up, or your cultural beliefs or your religious beliefs. Taking something that you did not pay for anywhere in the world is deemed as illegal. So this is a law. You must not steal. Companies must also follow labor laws, like paying minimum wages. So I think each and every country has what they call minimum wage or minimum salary, and each and every company has to obey by those laws. If you don't, you get penalized by the government. Tax is also another thing. Businesses must pay taxes to the government. If you don't, you do get penalized. So those are the differences between ethical behavior and legal behavior. Let's look at the table just right underneath. So we have the source. Is it written or not written? Is it required or not required? Will there be a punishment if you break it, or if you don't follow it? What kind of examples do we have? And we are talking about ethics versus laws here. So ethics, the source, these are personal values. Where does it come from? That's what we mean by the source. These are personal values, cultural beliefs, and morals, basically, of a person. So these can differ from one person to another, right? And the laws, where do they originate from? Pretty much the government or the governing body, right? Or a state or something. But in most cases, it is a government. Is it written or is it not written? Under ethics, yes. Under ethics are not written. Like I said, this is not written in law. This is based on your values and your principles, right? Laws, yes, they are written. There's a guideline, there's guidebooks, there's, a book that has all the laws of a country, of a state, of a nation, or of anything that you might think of, right? Is it required? Ethics, no, but it is expected from any human being that is, a professional. Yes, laws are required because they govern people, they make sure that everyone is doing what is deemed safe. Is there a punishable offense if you break ethics or if you do not follow ethics? Basically, technically no, but there will be loss of trust from the peers or the people that you work with, your suppliers, your stakeholders, and also in the end you build what we call bad reputation. Under laws, yes, there is a punishment, which are fines. You can serve jail time, or there are other penalties depending on one country to the other. What kind of examples do we have under ethics? This is pretty much just telling the truth, keeping the promises, saying what you said you were gonna do. Keeping your word. And laws, these are pretty much, for example, not driving over the speed limit. If you drive over the speed limit in any country, you get arrested because this is a law. And why are both important? So laws pretty much set the minimum standard. Ethics goes beyond the minimum, right? Ethical companies and trust and loyal customers. So if you're an ethical customer, if you're an ethical company, you do pretty much earn trust from your clients, from your customers, and they tend to become loyal to you, which means they listen, they appreciate you, they value you. And together, if you put them together, ethics and laws help create a fair and strong society. right? So let's move on. These are just real life examples, cheating on tax, using customer data, paying employees, advertising truthfully. So a successful business does more than follow the law. It does what is right. So let's go on. So ethics and laws. What is ethical behavior or ethics? These are a set of standards that govern the conduct of a person, especially a member of a profession. And what is legal? Legal behavior follows, excuse me, legal behavior pretty much follows the laws, which may change over time. So these are laws, these are written things that can be improved, that can be changed over time. So doing something right and doing something required. Ethical, we're talking about something that is right, even when no one is watching, even when there's no law that is written. And legal, we're talking about things that are set, things that are written, which are required for you to follow. And the practice question that I would give you would be, what is the main difference between ethical behavior and legal behavior? I mean, we just spoke about it. So what do you think is the main difference between ethical behavior and legal behavior? A, ethical behavior is doing what is right, while legal behavior is following the law. B says ethical behavior means making more money. C says legal behavior is optional, but ethical behavior is required. Whereas D goes on to say ethics and laws are exactly the same. So which one do you think is the main difference between ethical and legal behavior? Let me know if you have any questions. Just let me know when we have our Q&A live sessions. Practice question 2, a business owner. So here's some sort of a scenario question where they give you like maybe a story or a passage or something, then you have to figure out what's happening. So a business owner has two choices, right? So this person has two choices: follow the law, do what is fair and honest. What do these choices represent? So both of them, what kind of choices do these represent? Do they represent legal behavior and ethical behavior, which is A? Or do they represent marketing and finance, which is B? Do they represent goods and services, which is C? Or do they represent D, which is profit and loss? So we move on to what we call business ethics. What are business ethics? Here, our learning outcomes under business ethics would be able to explain the concept of business ethics and outline the steps companies take to encourage ethical behavior. So what do these companies do to encourage ethical behavior? We should also be able to explain, by the end of this class, we should be able to explain the concept of business ethics. We should also be able to explain how ethics relates to business and the individual. We should be able to define corporate code of ethics, and as well as explain the role managers pretty much do in setting standards for ethical behavior. So what is ethical? What is ethics? What is business ethics? What is ethics in business? What is business ethics? Business ethics are the rules and the values that help businesses do what is right, fair, and honest. So these are pretty much the rules, the values, that sort of help a business to do the right things, something that is deemed balanced, fairness, and transparency, integrity. In other words, something that is honest. So let's move on. Business ethics, what do they help companies with? Business ethics help companies make good decisions. A business should not only think about making money. It should also think about its employees, customers, society, and the environment. So in other words, a business should not only think about maximizing its revenue, it should also think about its stakeholders. And here we have, different kinds of stakeholders, like the employees, the customers, the society, and the environment. Why? Because the employees work for you. The product that you're selling is being produced by the employees, right? The revenue that you're generating is basically being generated by these employees that are making the goods and the services that you sell at the end of the day. Your customers are the ones that are buying the things that your business focuses on, right? The society is where you operate your business, right? The environment is where maybe your business is established, right? Is it safe? Is it being polluted? Is there sustainability and things like that, right? Are you destroying people's communities? So ethics help businesses build trust. So an example would be a company tells customers the truth about their products, that this is what we use, we don't do this, we did this, it is good for you, it is not good for you. Just being open and transparent with your customers about your products. Or a restaurant that keeps its kitchen clean to protect its consumers from getting sick, from having food poisoning, or from just experiencing a bad experience. An example that is regarded bad though would be a company that lies in an advertisement just to sell more products. So they advertise that if you use our products, you gain this, the outcome is this, you have this kind of benefits. But then when the consumers buy the product, they realize that none of it is true. This is not good for a business. These are not good business ethics, right? Code of conduct. What is code of conduct? Code of ethics. I'm sorry. What is code of ethics? So code of ethics is a written guide that tells employees how to behave in an honest and responsible ways. So this is basically a written guide. This is something that is written, maybe in an office, in a hall, in a library, or somewhere where employees can see it. It pretty much guides them or tells them how to behave in a very open, transparent, honest, and a very responsible way, to take, responsible for your actions. If you make a mistake, you open up. If you do something, be honest. Everyone should just own up to their mistakes and move on from that. So let's look at what it explains. So it explains what employees should do and should not do. So it's pretty much the rule book of an organization. If you think about it, we said governments make laws for the country, right? This code of ethics is pretty much the law book of an organization, of a business, or of a company. So it pretty much explains what employees should do or should not do. It helps everyone make a good decision at the end of the day. And examples would be, it may tell employees, be honest at work, treat everyone with respect, do not accept bribes. We will talk about bribes later on. Protect customer information and follow company rules. So you can see that this is something that is written for someone who is at work, during the operations. Be honest during your time here. Treat everyone with respect, do not accept bribes, protect consumer information, and follow company rules. Yes, it does apply for majority of the time when you're at work, but if the company follows this over and over again, these characteristics can also translate into people's personal lives. So this is actually good. So think of it as the company's the right side and the wrong side of doing things. So this is the right and the wrong side, pretty much the law book of a company or the guidebook of a company. And business ethics is pretty much the doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And we explained it, but I'll try to explain it again. Let me just increase so that we can all see what I'm talking about. So business ethics, they refer to the principles and standards that guide the behavior of individuals and organizations in the business world. It involves making honest, fair, and responsible decisions that respect the rights and well-being of others. So it's basically how you deal with others, how you operate if we were to put you in a group full of other people. So good ethics build trust, and trust builds success. Why is business ethics important? Why do they matter so much? Why do we have to learn about them? Why do companies have to adopt them? Because, excuse me, because they build trust, right? You build trust by creating, that special bond between you and your customers, your employees, your partners, and the public. So these are your stakeholders. When your customers are happy, they keep buying from you. When your employees are happy, they work with motivation. They're happy to come to work, right? Your turnover rates are very low, right? Your partners, they invest, they want to do business with you, they buy from you, not from your competitors. The public, they respect you, they want to work for you, they don't want to kick you out of their community, right? It improves reputation. People say good things about you, so a strong ethical reputation attracts customers. When people say good things about you, more customers come, more investors want to work with you. Good, talented, and bright individuals want to work for your company. So this is very good for you. It also helps you to reduce risks. So it helps companies avoid legal problems because you know what to do, what not to do, right? Fines, things like damage to their image. You avoid all of these things. And if you're aiming to be in business for a long time, it does support your long-term success. So ethical behavior are more sustainable and resilient over time. So examples of business ethics in action, this is basically things like honesty, right? Being truthful in communication and advertising. So when you're communicating with your business partners, your stakeholders, the community, your employees, your customers, the public, you should always be transparent and honest. Say the truth, right? When you put out an advert, say exactly what your product does and what your product does not do. Don't try to go overboard and promise something that your consumers are not going to get. So honesty is one of the examples of business ethics. Fairness also is treating all employees, customers, and suppliers fairly without any bias, because these are the people that are pretty much involved in your business. Without them, the business fails, right? Respect amongst people. So we have diversification, where we have people in one company that come from different places, different countries, people of different colors. So valuing diversity and treating others with dignity and respect is also an example. Responsibility, taking responsibility for the impact of business decision on society and environment is very important. And the last would be integrity, doing the right thing even when it is difficult or unpopular. So code of ethics, a company's guide to doing the right thing. So basically what this means is, what is code of ethics? A code of ethics is pretty much, a guide of doing the right thing. It's a company's guide of doing the right thing. So let's look at what we have here. I'll try to increase so that we can all see. So just picture it as a board or a paper stuck on the wall that says our company's code of ethics, our commitment: act with integrity, obey the law, be honest and fair, respect others, protect information, and report concerns. So just imagine you going to work and you see like a paper everywhere you go that says these kind of things. So a code of ethics is pretty much a written set of principles that explain how employees should behave in an organization, in a company, right? So it sets expectations. It helps your employees understand the company's values. So what are our values? What do we have to do? What kind of values and standards do we have, right? It also guides decision making. It helps your employees make ethical choices in difficult situations. So when an employee is faced with a difficult situation, what should I do? They will be able to know what to do. It encourages reporting. It provides a safe way pretty much to report things that are not ethical, unethical behavior, without fear of being punished or things like that. It protects the company, it strengthens the trust, helps prevent misconduct and legal problems. And what does a code of ethics typically include? So it includes a company's values and mission, the principles that guide the business, right? The backbone of the business, the standards of conduct, how we treat other people and make decisions. So this is based on a company, their standard of conduct, how they treat other people and make decisions. Confidentiality, right? Protecting the company and customer information. So this is, I think we spoke about this in the other lecture the other day about, protecting people's information, the database and stuff like that. Conflict of interest, avoiding situations where personal interest conflict with company interest. So when you work with maybe a competitor, or where you do something that benefits, a competitor, things like that, being able to comply with the law, compliance with the law, following all applicable laws and regulations. So this means if there are any regulations, if there are any laws, you should be able to follow them. And reporting and accountability. So you should be able to report, things that are unethical and taking accountability in certain situations, right? The bottom line here is ethical behavior is good for people, good for business, and good for the world. So strong ethics, strong company equals to a strong future. So let's go on and look at let me just decrease the page so that you can see company codes of ethics and codes of practice. So we're going to talk about a company's code of ethics and a company's code of practice. A company's code of ethics is a set of ethical rules made by a company for its employees. So this is pretty much a set of ethical rules, things that they deem ethical, that a company makes for its employees. So every company has different values. So different company, different values. The code of ethics explains those values. It explains those values, how employees should behave every single day. It helps create trust between the company, employees, and its customers. So for example, Apple's code of ethics may include respect customers, protect private information, be honest, follow the law. And Starbucks code of ethics include treating customers and employees with respect, right? And let's move on. A code of practice, on the other hand, explains the correct way to do a job safely, professionally, and responsibly. So you can see the difference. A code of ethics is a set of ethical rules made by a company for its employees. So one is made by the company for its employees, right? The other explains the correct way to do a job safely, professionally, and responsibly. So unlike a code of ethics, which focuses on values, a code of practice focuses on how we should work, how work should be done. It gives the employees step-by-step rules. So pretty much a guideline that gives you step-by-step rules and procedures. So for example, a restaurant's code of practice may say, wash your hands. This is how to do, or what should be done, or how can it be done, right? So a restaurant code of practice may say, wash your hands, wear clean clothes, store food at the correct temperature, clean equipment after use. These rules help keep customers safe. So that's what we call a code of practice. So pretty much practice, there's the word practice, which means doing, right? To do something. So these are valid. These code of practice focuses on how work should be done, the doing part as in practical, right? So let's move on. There's a lot of information here that we should cover as well. Let me just increase it. Okay, and then I move here. Okay, let me just move here. So company code of ethics and codes of practice. So what are they? What are we talking about? What is code of ethics? What is code of practice, right? Code of ethics, basically, a code of ethics sets out the moral principles, values, standards that guide decision making and behavior. It explains what is right, right? A code of practice, on the other hand, sets out the specific policies, procedures, and practical steps to put those values into action, how to do it. Right, it pretty much explains how to do it, right? Like I told you, wear clean clothes, wash your hands, put things at the right temperature and things like that. Why do they matter? Why do these two matter? They promote ethical behavior and integrity, right? It builds trust with employees, customers, and your stakeholders, pretty much. Support legal compliance and reduce risk. Strengthen reputation and organizational culture. So let's look at the differences between code of ethics and a code of practice, right? So what is the purpose? What is the focus? What is the nature? What is the content? What is the scope? And an example question of code of ethics or code of practice. So what is the purpose of code of ethics? The purpose of code of ethics is that it defines the organizational values, the principles, and the standards, ethical standards, whereas code of practice provides detailed guidance on how to apply the same values, right? So what does it focus on? What is right, right? Code of ethics focuses on what is deemed right, and code of practice, how to do the right thing. Okay, so what is right is code of ethics, and code of practice is how to do that right thing. So that's the value, how to practice that value, how to do that value. And the nature of it is broad, overreaching, and principle based, right? Code of practice is specific, it is practical, you can put it into practice, and it is action orientated, right? Content, it's based on values, beliefs, ethical standards, and moral expectations, right? And whereas code of practice, it is based on policies, procedures, rules, steps, and best practices that an organization can put in place, right? The scope, it applies to all. How far does it go, or how far does it cover? It applies to all decisions and behavior across the organization. If we're talking about code of ethics, it pretty much applies to all the decisions, behavior across an organization, which is the whole organization. It applies to specific activities, functions, and situations. Like wash your clothes, come in with clean clothes, cut your nails, cut your hair, especially if you're talking about hospitality, right? And then an example question would be, is this the right thing to do when we're talking about code of ethics? Under code of practice, how do I do this the right way? So examples of code of ethics would be honesty, right? Being honest, integrity in all interactions. So when you're dealing with your customers, your employees, your managers, anyone who's involved in an organization, you're honest, you're showing integrity, right? You respect everyone, you treat everyone with fairness, and you protect confidentiality and privacy information or data that belongs to your workmates or the company, right? You avoid conflicts of interest, as in, working with a competitor or talking about your company with a competitor, and it is committed to social responsibility. So an example, a principle stating we act with honesty and integrity in all our business dealings, right? An example of code of practice would be procedure for reporting misconduct. How do you report misconduct, guidelines for data protection. Yes, here on Code of Ethics, we mentioned that we should not leak customer information. We should protect, customer information, privacy, confidentiality. But how do we do it? Right? How do we practice that? How do we go about having our employees or our team or our organization not leaking that information? So it also provides steps for handling customer complaints. Like when a customer comes in with a complaint, how should you deal with the customer, right? Workplace health and safety procedures, like I mentioned, when you're talking about hospitality industry, you find a lot of workplace health and safety procedures. Code of conduct for use of the company assets, right? An example would be a procedure outlining the steps to report data breach, right? So how do you go about reporting data breach, right? So the key takeaway here is that the code of ethics sets the direction, right? The code of ethics sets the direction. It puts the direction in place, and whereas the code of practice shows the way. So we set the direction and we show the way of how to navigate to that direction. Together they build, something of a high performance organization, and something that is ethical, right? Let's move on to the differences. Let me just decrease this. So these are basically the differences between a code of ethics and a code of practice. So we have on this side, we have code of ethics. On the other side, we have code of practice. So code of ethics, like I said, it focuses on values, whereas a code of practice focuses on actions, right? So values, how do we put it into action, right? What is right and wrong is code of ethics, and how do we do the job correctly is code of practice. Honesty, respect, and fairness is pretty much belongs to code of ethics, whereas safety, procedures, and quality pretty much belongs to code of practice. Guides decisions, pretty much code of ethics, whereas guides daily work pretty much belongs to code of practice. So the easy way to remember this would be ethics, how should I behave? Practice, how should I do my job? Those are the two differences between the two. So if you have any other questions, please let me know when we have our Q&A. Apart from that, let's continue maybe for 10 more minutes or so, and then we have our first break today. So how do we encourage ethical behavior in an organization or in a company? How do we go about encouraging people or encouraging an organization to practice ethical behavior? So encouraging ethical behavior means, helping your employees make honest, fair, and responsible decisions. So how do we go about, encouraging our employees, people that work for us, to make honest decisions, fair and responsible decisions? So a company should create a workplace where employees feel comfortable doing the right thing. So this is very important, whether doing the right thing, whether just comfortability. If an organization has some sort of, strange way for employees, people feel demotivated, they don't want to work there. But if you are open, if it's a two-way communication kind of organization, people feel free, people feel happy to work there, they are motivated, they feel like it's home, they feel like it, if they do something wrong, they're cheating themselves. So managers should reward honesty, treat everyone fairly. Where it is balanced, where there's fairness, people usually tend to like those kind of places. So examples that we can give here is that a company can encourage ethical behavior by training its employees. When you train people, they realize that you're giving them value because they're becoming better equipped. They're gaining skills, knowledge, and intellectual capabilities that they never had before they started working for that company. So yes, you're not giving them currency in the terms of money, but you're giving them currency in terms of skills, in terms of brains, in terms of development. And they can also reward honest workers. Those people that are honest, people that always tell the truth, they can be rewarded. Reporting problems fairly, you shouldn't punish one and not punish the other. If something happens, everyone should be punished the same. Treating everyone with respect, this is very, very important. So we have more information here. So after we do this, we take our break because there's a lot of information here. So let's see what we have here. So encouraging ethical behavior. Let me just move this and put it here. Excuse me. So encouraging ethical behavior. This is basically building a culture where doing the right thing is everyone's responsibility. So it's not just the supervisors, it's not just the managers, it's pretty much everyone who is involved in a company or in an organization. So what does it mean? Why does it matter? What does it mean? It means encouraging ethical behaviors. Encouraging ethical behavior basically means creating an environment where employees understand what is right. So your employees know what is right. They are fully aware of, what is the right thing. Feel supported and do to feel supported by the organization and are recognized when they do it. So these are the three keywords. So it's basically when an organization creates an environment where understanding is present, support is present, and recognition is present. So this is very important. And why does this matter? It builds trust with customers, employees, and stakeholders. So when your employees are happy, they treat your customers well. When your customers are happy, they buy. And when your customers buy, they make more money. And when you make more money, stakeholders, your suppliers, and everyone else is happy. It improves employee morale and retention, right? You don't have high turnover. People stay. They want, they want to belong to the company. They are loyal to the company. It reduces risk, mistakes, and legal problems, right? Because people love what they do. They pay attention when they're doing it. They're not doing it out of arrogance. They're not doing it out of just, I'm here to get money. They're doing it out of passion, out of love, right? It strengthens the reputation and long-term success, because when your customers are happy, they tell other people, and pretty much everyone knows the company. So an ethical culture leads to better decisions, strong relationships, and a more sustainable organization. So how to encourage ethical behavior? Let's look at how to encourage ethical behavior. So we have strategy, how that strategy helps, and what it looks like. So first, strategies lead by example. When we're talking about ethical behavior, the organization leaders, the managers, the supervisors should lead by example. So ethical leadership, this is what we call it. How does it help? Leaders set the tone. Basically, a leader, people look up to him. So employees follow what the leaders do more than what they say. So if your leader says one thing but pretty much comes to work late, he's never present, they will pretty much do the same thing. So it's not what you say, it's what you do as a leader. And what does it look like? Leaders act with honesty. So if the leader is honest, the employees will also be honest. They admit mistakes and take responsibilities. If they do this, the employees, also the people that are below them, the people that report to them, will pretty much follow the same thing. If the leaders make fair and unbiased decisions, the team also follows it. Strategy number 2: provide training and awareness. Training and awareness is very important, because people get to know what is required, what is not required, how to act in certain situations. So it helps employees understand ethical standards. They know what the ethical standards are and how to apply them in daily work. So when they know what is required, what is supposed to be done, they can apply it in their daily work. And what does it look like? Regular ethics training and workshops. So it's not just working production. It's also taking your staff to seminars, to workshops, so that you can add not only on the manpower or on how they produce things, but on the intellectual level, or on the understanding of what an organization is, what it takes to run an organization, what is required, some ethical behavior, some ethical things that are part of an organization. Again, real life scenarios and discussions, that not just giving them examples, but then showing them things that actually do happen when they are working. Updates on policies and laws. So the laws change, the policies change. These should be updated on regular basis. Number 3, as a strategy, have clear policies and codes of conduct. Clear rules and expectations guide employees and reduce confusion. When everything is being broadcasted, when everything is being updated, it avoids confusion, because people know that, number 2 is no longer there. There's now number 3, which says this. So they're up to date with everything, and it reduces confusion. So written code of ethics and conduct is a way how you can do it. Simple and accessible in local language. So it should be in a local language, something that everyone understands. Easily available to all employees. So it shouldn't be something that you do and then you share to one person. It should be maybe put on a big board so that everyone can read it. Number 4 is a strategy. Should be able to recognize and reward ethical behavior. So how does it help? Rewarding reinforce positive behavior, ensure that ethics is valued. So when you reward somebody, other people will see that, oh, this is important. If I also do the same thing, I will also get a reward. So in the end, they'll try to do it because they're trying to get a reward, right? And what does it look like? It recognizes employees. So being able to recognize employees who do the right thing, include ethics in performance reviews. So when you do your end of year performance reviews, include an ethics section so that they see that this is important. Celebrate ethical decision making. When somebody makes an ethical decision, celebrate it so that others can see that, oh, this is important. So encourage speak up and reporting. So employees must feel safe to report concerns without fear. This is how it helps. And what does it look like? Make sure it's confidential reporting, maybe put in place a hotline, an email, a portal. No retaliation against what we call whistleblowers, which is something that we're going to talk about. Have timely investigation and action. And the last strategy would be promote fairness and transparency. What does this help with? It helps with fair and transparent, promoting a fair and transparent workplace, which builds trust and prevents unethical behavior. And what does it look like? Fair play, promotion, and workload that is balanced amongst everyone. Open communication between the manager and the employees. When there's something bothering them, you can have them come and tell you without having that fear. Transparent decision and processes. And these are some of the examples in real organizations that we have. I believe most of you know Tata. I don't think you know the other company. So Tata promotes integrity through its code of conduct, ethics training, and a strong speaker culture where employees are encouraged to raise concerns without fear. So basically, they push the employees to say what's happening. If there's something is bothering them, they can say. And examples in everyday work situation is basically refusing to share a client's confidential information, reporting an error from the employees instead of hiding it because they are free. There's a two-way communication. They're not afraid to report something, giving an honest feedback without hurting others, not accepting gifts or favors that may influence decisions, and helping a colleague instead of taking credit. So small ethical choices every day create a strong ethical culture. So let's stop here for now. Let's take a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we will continue on the 5 strategies to promote safer and more ethical workplaces. So I will see you at 10 in 10 minutes. I was about to say that my time as if we are doing the lesson live. So see you in 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, so let's go on um, with five strategies to promote a safer and more ethical workplace. So, how do we boost a much more safer and more ethical workplace? So, right here we have five strategies that suggest, what we call ECI, which is Ethics and Compliance Initiative. So, the first one is to lead by example, like I mentioned before. Sorry, is to lead by examples. Managers should always act in honesty and should practice fairness amongst all employees. Why? Because people tend to listen to what you do rather than what you say. So, as a manager, you have to look at your employees or the staff that reports to you or people that are under you as your kids, as your children. Because if you are a parent, um, your children pretty much copies they copy what you do rather than what you say. You can say good things to them, teach them, but if your actions are the opposite, they will always copy your actions. So managers should lead by example. And an example of this is a manager follows the same rules as everyone else, right? Not to say these are the rules, but then you break the rules. You come to work late. You're not participating. You don't show fairness. People will not respect you, and they'll pretty much do the same thing. The second one would be you teach your staff, teach your employees, provide ethics and safety training. This is very important. You cannot expect people to practice ethics or to work in a safe manner when they've never been taught. Yes, they might not know, but they just don't know how to do it. So an example would be new employees, especially, should be able to taught and learn company rules on the first day, after a month, after 3 months, after 6 months, after a year. This should be a regular thing, not to say when you teach somebody today and then you never teach them for the next 10 years, they will obviously forget, right? You should also encourage, the third one, encourage your employees to speak up. Why? Because sometimes a two-way communication is very important. You get to hear what's happening on the other side. And if you listen to these, it's like listening to a customer. If you don't listen to a customer, you might make a product or a good or a service that they don't like. But if you listen to a customer, if we listen to your customers, you make what they expect from you, or you make what they want or what they need, right? So employees should feel safe to report their problems or to say what exactly is going on, maybe in the production facility, a production line, or where they are working as a team, or what's happening, where the managers don't spend most of their times at. An example would be an employee reporting unsafe equipment without fear of punishment. So managers should be able to listen to things that employees bring forward to them. This is how you promote a safer and more ethical workplace. So let's say, for example, BYD, it has what we call a production line. Maybe one employee notices that we're spending too much time on this, or maybe that arm or that bolt or that machine is delaying 1, 2, 3. Because he's lower than the manager, in most companies, managers don't regard his information as something valuable or as something important. They downplay him. But if you want to promote a safer and more ethical workplace, you should be able to listen to these employees. Why? Because he spends more time than the manager in that production facility, on that production line. So maybe he is giving you a valuable information or an insight. So encouraging employees to speak up is very, very important. And the fourth one would be reward good behavior. So when people behave in a good way, they listen, they come to work on time, these people should be rewarded. Recognize employees who do the right thing, those people that are always on time, those people that are never cause any problems, that want to learn, that want to listen. An example would be a worker receives an award for being honest or for showing integrity, right? The fifth one is create a safe workplace. When you create a safe workplace, people feel at ease. People feel motivated to come to work. People love to come to work. People appreciate the workplace. So if you protect your employees from accidents and unsafe conditions, they like to do their work. They do their work with, full hearts, without any hesitation. Passion is ingrained in the work as well. But when it's the opposite, they don't want to come because they're afraid for their life. They're afraid, something might happen, or they might cut a finger, they might lose a hand. So it kind of creates this strange workplace whereby people are demotivated to a certain extent. And an example of how to create a safe workplace would be workers wearing helmets, gloves, and other safety equipment, right? So let's move on to strategies to promote safer and more ethical workplaces, more in a visual kind of sense of things. So let me just increase this so that we can all see what I'm talking about. So these examples are mostly based in China. So safe and ethical workplaces protect employees, improve productivity, and build a responsible economy, right? So strong laws and regulations create and enforce clear laws on, health, safety, and workers' rights, right? So an example in China would be the worker safety law. This is a set of rules for employers to ensure a safe working place. So like I mentioned, if you have a safe working place, people want to work for you, people want to come there. Regular training, just like I mentioned here, right? Strategies to promote a safer and more ethical workplace, right? Regular training and awareness, right? Like I mentioned, train your employees and managers on safety procedures and ethical behavior. So an example here in China is something like Huawei. So companies like Huawei provide safety training and ethical workshops for all their staff, right? This is good because they know information up to date. They feel motivated, they feel involved, and not just workers, but they are part of the organization. So in other words, they feel important. Encourage reporting and speak up. This build a culture where employees can report unsafe and unethical behavior without fear. Like I said, is there something wrong, on the production line, or production facility, or anything that doesn't have to do with machinery or production, your employees should be open to come to the manager and being able to express exactly what's going on, right? An example would be a lot of firms, for example, like Alibaba, they make use of hotlines that allow their employees to report issues confidentially without anyone knowing that it's me who called or it's that person that called. So if there's anything that needs to be reported, needs to be said, they just call on this hotline without anyone knowing that it's them. Fair treatment and no discrimination. An organization should ensure equal opportunities, fair wages, and respect to all employees. This, as an example, leading companies like follow the labor contract law, which is set by the government to protect employees' rights and fair pay, working hours, and equal treatment. Another way how to promote safer and ethical workplaces would be promote health and well-being, support physical and mental health with good benefits, sort of create a work and life balance. Why is this important? Because when you stress people too much, when you give them work, they tend to become demotivated. They're tired, they're lazy, they're not interested in working or in coming to work, or they do come, but they do things, haphazardly, without focus, without energy, and in the end, they can get hurt. So promoting health and well-being, especially when we are talking about mental health, is very important nowadays because life it's very fast and it's become very stressful. So promoting health and well-being, especially physical and mental health, is very important. And ByteDance, the parent company of Douyin, offers mental health support, flexible work options, and wellness programs. So flexible work options is that sometimes when it's not busy, you can work from home. You can spend time with your family. Excuse me. You don't need to come to the office and things like that. Another way to promote this would be build a safety and ethics culture. So leaders should be able to set a good example and recognize a safe and ethical behavior. And an example that I can give would be a company like Sinopec, which emphasizes on people first, safety first, and reward teams that follow safety rules and act with integrity. So the supporting strategies in China, you have government oversight, social responsibility, worker representation, and by combining, the key takeaway here is that combining the strong laws, education, fair treatment, and a culture of integrity, most of the workplaces in China can be safer, more ethical, and more productive, right? So let's move on to the role of executives and managers in setting ethical standards. What is the role? What kind of role do these people play in setting ethical behaviors when we're talking about executives and managers? So executives and managers should lead by example. Like I said, managers should lead by example. If you want to promote ethical standards in an organization, they should be able to lead by example and show the employees that are below them or people that report to them how to behave ethically. So employees watch what their managers do. Like I said, if you're a parent, your children will always watch what you do, not what you say, right? So employees watch what their managers do. So if managers are honest, if they're fair, employees are more likely to behave in the same way, right? So if you're fair, if you're honest, if you do things the right way, if you come to work on time, if you stay maybe after hours, your employees want to be like you. They want to be where you are, so they will likely copy you. But if you say one thing and then you come to work late, they don't believe you. They don't trust you. They see you like a hypocrite, right? So good leaders create an ethical workplace. They practice what they speak, right? In other words, practice what you preach, right? So examples would be a manager who tells the truth, a manager who treats everyone fairly, a manager who follows company rules, not somebody who breaks the rules just because he is a manager, right? Employees tend to be against something like that. So employees are more likely to copy this kind of behavior when somebody follows the rules, treats everyone fairly, and tells the truth. If a manager lies or cheats, they'll probably do the same thing. Employees may think this is acceptable because you're doing it, so why can't I do it as well? This is how they project things or how they think, right? So a manager should be able to be somebody who tells the truth, somebody who's always showing integrity, right? Someone who's always honest, sorry. So I had prepared a class discussion here. Ethics is more like a situation kind of question, a scenario kind of question. So let's just say you are hiring a friend. So imagine you are the manager of a company, right? Your best friend applies for a job, but another person has better qualifications. So you have your friend on this end who applied for a job, your good friend, but you have another person that you don't know on this side who has better qualifications than your friend. What do? This is your friend, your best friend. This is a person who you don't know, but has better qualifications. They both applied for the same job. You are the manager. What do you do? So, A, should you hire your friend because you know them? B, should you hire the most qualified person? C, should you flip a coin? D, ask your friend to choose. What do you do if you were in this kind of situation? So which answer did you choose? Is your decision ethical? Why or why not? So try to answer this, and then I'll probably ask you, is your decision ethical? If yes, or why not? So What do you think? If you choose A, do you think it is ethical? If you choose B, do you think it's ethical? Why or why not? The same applies for C and for D. Now, let's move on to ethical challenges. We've been talking about how to implement ethics, how to promote them, but what are the challenges that most organizations are facing when they try to implement or put these into place? So our learning outcomes here, when we talk about ethical challenges, are being able to define the common ethical challenges faced by organizations. What kind of things are regular when it comes to ethical challenges that are being faced by organizations? We should be able to define what is bribery. Remember, I spoke about bribery earlier on in the lecture, and I told you we were going to talk about it later. I believe it's just a few more slides down the line. Define what is kickback. Define conflict of interest. We should also be able to explain how whistleblowers can contribute to a company's ethical behavior, and at the same time being able to give examples of unethical corporate of business behavior. So let's see. Ethical issues, bribes. What is a bribery? So a bribery is the act of giving money, goods, or any forms of compensation to a recipient in exchange for an alteration of their behavior to the benefit or interest of the giver that the recipient would otherwise not alter, right? And a kickback is a form of negotiated bribery in which a commission is paid to the bribe taker in exchange for services rendered. These are complicated decisions, so I made some sort of visual representation to see what a bribe is. So let's try to see if we can understand what really a bribe is from this visual presentation here. So ethical issues in a workplace. So these are bribes, these are kickbacks. So bribes is basically to give something unfair to get an advantage. So to give something to get an unfair advantage. Usually in most cases it's money or something of value, right? So supplier, for example, supplier gives expensive gifts to purchasing manager. So a supplier that supplies this company A. So let's say this is company A, right? And this supplier supplies to company A. This supplier buys company A an iPhone, right? This is something that we call a bribe. Why? Because they're buying these people an iPhone in order that next time they keep giving them business. So we call them a bribe, right? So a supplier gives expensive gift to purchasing manager. Why? Because they want to maintain relationships and they want to keep getting more and more business. It's something else, right? Gift card to inspector to ignore problems, right? So you're buying like a gift card to the inspector, maybe a car inspector, so that he doesn't look at your problems, your car problems. This is what we call bribing, right? A doctor, sales representatives offers a luxury travel to a hospital staff. Why? Maybe because they want to get free medication. They always want to be in line. They want to be treated, as VIPs. So, buying something of value or giving something of value so that you can get like an unfair advantage. This is what we call a bribe. Also, a supplier gives cash or gift to win a contract. So when we're talking about real estate or real estate development, people win contracts or to develop a building, to develop a site, to develop something, so these contractors, they bid, they do something which is called bidding, right? You have 10 suppliers that are fighting for that one contract, right? So maybe one of those contractors takes money and gives the company that is issuing the contract to say, we are good people. Here's your pocket money. No problem, no problem. Why? Because they're trying to win the contract. That is what we call a bribe. A kickback is secret paying for giving business, right? So manager gets maybe a certain percentage after awarding a contract. So remember, bribing is when you give the money to win something. So after winning something, I can promise you that if I get the contract, you will get certain percentage. right? You will get maybe 10% of the profits that we make, or things like that. Or, for example, a logistics company pays commission to the supervisor. Why? Because they want favors. Or supplier returns money after winning a contract. So after you win a contract, you give a certain percentage of the money back to the organization. Why? It is unfair. It is risk. It's unsafe. People lose trust, organizations lose trust if they do practice in these, and the costs are higher because you might end up getting reported, you lose your job, and things like that. So that is a bribe, and that is kickback. So let's look at what we call ethical issues under conflict of interest, right? Conflict of interest, which is what we call COI, is an ethical challenge that occurs when an individual or organization is involved in multiple interests that are at odds with one another. So maybe you work for company A and you have your own company, and you do a signing that can benefit your company from the main company, right? You're doing something that we call conflict of interest. So self-dealing. And self-dealing, this is in which an official who controls an organization causes it to enter into a transaction with the official or with another organization that benefits the official, right? So you control maybe a bread company that supplies the whole country, and you have your own bakery. So instead of signing, raw materials from another company, you sign your small company to supply raw materials to the bakery or the baking company. That is what we call conflict of interest. Another one is outside employment, in which the interests of one job contradict the other. Family interest, in which a spouse, child, or other close relatives is employed or applies for employment, or where goods and services are purchased from such a relative or firm controlled by a relative. Abuse of this type of conflict interest is what we call nepotism. So this is when a father, maybe he's a director, a CEO, and he hires his son or his family members, or he only deals with his family members' businesses, right? Conflict of interest, another example would be, gifts from friends, who also do business with the same person. Receiving gifts may include, non-tangible things of value such as transportation or lodging. This is a bit confusing, so I always try to put things in visual perspective so that you get what I'm trying to explain. So the same thing, ethical issues, which is what is conflict of interest. So conflict of interest is an ethical challenge that occurs when an individual or organization is involved in multiple interests that are at odds with one another. What do we mean by this? Let me just increase this so that we can all see what I mean. Right. So self-dealing. So this is when this official, right, maybe company director, right, he has his own company. He wins or he signs a contract to benefit his own company from the main company. So an official who controls an organization causes it to enter into a transaction with the other official or with another organization that benefits the official, right? The official is working on both sides. So he has this small company, and from the big company, he makes himself to win the contract. That is, an example of what we call conflict of interest. Outside employment occurs when interests of one job contradict with another. For example, you work full-time in job A, right? This is job A, right? And then you also work time in job B, which is a competitor of job A, right? So you're working full-time in company A, and then you're working part-time in company B, which basically is a competitor. They deal with the same products, they deal with the same customers. This is not good because you will breach information, you will leak information, right? Family matters, where we talk about nepotism. So this is when you're the manager, and you apply people that are basically your family members because they're just your family, not because they are qualified. You apply, you hire, not apply. You hire people based on your family or because they're your sister or they're your brother instead of their qualifications. So this occurs when a spouse or child or other close relative is employed, or where goods or services are purchased from such relative, right? So maybe your relative has a shop, and instead of buying from other suppliers, seasoned or suppliers that are verified, you buy from your family members. This is what we call nepotism, when you're just hiring your family members, right? Gifts from friends. This occurs maybe a supplier it gives an employee like a gift. Why? Because in the end, they're looking for favors. So this is what we call conflict of interest. Maybe they don't want a favor, but next time when they come and ask you for something, you will do it because they've given you a gift, right? So this is why it's called conflict of interest. So let's look at the examples. So maybe self-dealing. A director approves a contract for a company to buy materials from his own small company, right? Outside employment, an employee works for company A during the day, but also works for a competitor during the night. So you work for a company A, big company, and then you work for a competitor. This is not okay because you're sharing information. They deal with the same people, they deal with the same suppliers, they have the same stakeholders. So this isn't right. Family matters is when you see a manager hiring his sister for a job, even though another applicant is more qualified. So you have somebody else who's more qualified, but then the manager only hires his brother, his sister, his family members, instead of somebody who's really suitable or qualified for the job. And gifts from friends, you see this when a supplier invites an employee on an all expenses paid trip in exchange for future business, advantages or favors, right? Why conflicts of interest are a problem in organization, in business, right? They are unfair, right? Because you're benefiting people that are not qualified. You're giving a chance to people that are not qualified. You're giving contracts to people that do not, right? They can break the law, right? They can cost the organization time, money, and trust. They damage reputation and public trust. Also, how to prevent such things. Organizations, managers, and people that sign the contract should be able to know the rules, the company policies, right? They should disclose any potential conflicts of interest. This is why it's important to train your staff. They should be honest and transparent. Also, being able to make decisions that are fair and in the best interest of the organization. And employees, when they don't know, they should be able to ask, able to talk to the managers without fear of being punished or fear of being rejected. So act with integrity, put the organization's interest first, not your own, because you're working for an organization, not yourself. So I hope you understand. If not, you can always ask me. Now let's move on to whistleblower. What is a whistleblower? So a whistleblower is basically a person who exposes information or activity that is deemed illegal, unethical, or incorrect within an organization that is either public or private. So this is a person who exposes information or any activity that is seen or deemed as illegal, unethical, or incorrect within an organization. So this is basically a person who talks too much, who shares information that is not correct, that is illegal, that is unethical. So whistleblowers take action to put an end to unethical practices after witnessing in injustices in the business or organizations, right? So let's look at a whistleblower. So like I said, a whistleblower is a person who exposes information or activity that is deemed illegal, unethical, or incorrect. So this is somebody who goes to say, if they see you doing something that they think or that they know is not correct, is not supposed to be done in this company, they go and tell the manager, they go and tell the boss. So maybe you are involved in conflict of interest, maybe you are leaking the company's information, maybe you are stealing company data, they go and tell your manager or somebody above you. So that is why the information is deemed illegal, unethical, or incorrect within an organization, right? So whistleblowers take action to put an end to these unethical practices after witnessing injustices in their businesses or organizations. So take, for example, I see you or somebody else doing something that I think, or something that I know that it's not allowed here, or he shouldn't do this. I watch them, and then I go and tell the manager, or then I go and tell a higher director or somebody that I saw this person drinking at work, or doing such behavior that is not allowed, or such behavior that is not deemed ethical in this organization. So what does a whistleblower do? A whistleblower basically reports wrongdoing. So when you do wrong things, they report you or unethical behavior in an organization. So when they see, like I said, you doing something wrong, or you doing things that are considered unlawful in an organization, they do go and report you to your manager or your director. They provide information to the right people or authorities, right? So like I said, they report you when they see you, for example, you're drinking at work where you're not supposed to drink alcohol. So they go and report you because it's unethical, right? It's illegal. Maybe you're selling data of the clients. Maybe you're leaking information. Maybe you're sharing certain information with suppliers. So they either tell the managers or they report directly to the police, right? They help protect the public, employees, customers, and organizations. Why? Because they they're sharing out things that maybe might have never been said or been shared, right? It promotes honesty, transparency, and accountability. So examples of what whistleblowers might report. What kind of examples can a whistleblower report or might report? Things like financial fraud, right? When they notice or see or get exposed to people that are dealing in financial fraud or theft, people that are stealing from the company, bribery or corruption, safety violations that can harm other people, discrimination or unfair treatment, environmental damage, right? So these are some of the examples that a whistleblower would see or would experience, and then they go tell the manager or authorities. Why whistleblowers are important in an organization? Some people disagree. They say, no, they're not important. They cause chaos. But why are they important in organizations? They help stop illegal or unethical activities. They protect employees, customers, and the public. They also help organizations become more honest and trustworthy. They also support a fair and just workplace and society. So basically, they do help an organization, even though it creates some sort of strange ways between employees. But whistleblowers are important in an organization's challenges. However, that whistleblowers might face are fear of losing their job. After reporting, maybe you've reported a big director, a big manager. People sometimes they don't report illegal actions or unethical or incorrect ways or actions of doing things. Why? Because they are afraid of losing their jobs. There's pressure or criticism from others after they report. The other colleagues who ask them, why did you do it? Are you crazy? This is a big guy. This is a manager. So people are afraid, and there's too much pressure. And there's also stress and emotional challenges that comes with reporting, especially your managers, your leaders, right? Possible isolation or unfair treatment. So maybe you don't lose your job. Maybe you're not stressed, but the moment that everyone knows that you reported, you are a whistleblower, you will get unfair treatment from the management that remains or from the people that you still work with, right? So there is what we call protection for whistleblowers. Many laws protect whistleblowers from punishment and unfair treatment. This depends on the country, organization, or the nation where you are best, right? Organizations should have clear policies to protect and support whistleblowers. So some organizations, they actually do promote and give benefits to whistleblowers, especially if you report things like financial fraud, theft, bribery, corruption. You get like a reward to say thank you. So a lot of organizations have a clear policy to protect and support these whistleblowers. How to be a responsible whistleblower? Make sure the information is true. Never lie about reporting somebody. So just make sure the information is true, or it is based on facts, not opinions. Report through correct channels, hotlines, managers, authorities, not sharing it with everyone. Stay professional and honest. Focus on solving the problem, not blaming people. So speaking up takes courage. Speaking up for what is right makes a difference. So this is what a whistleblower is. Let's move on. Class discussion. Whistleblower, right or wrong, right? So imagine you work for a company, right? You discover that your company is doing something wrong, right? You discover that your company is doing something wrong. They're selling unsafe products. They're hiding important information from customers. They're breaking the law. They're treating employees unfairly, right? You have two choices. Option A, you stay quiet because you are worried about losing your job. Option B, you report the problem to the manager or the government, right? Which one do you take? Do you choose option B, which is staying quiet because you're worried about losing your job, or do you take option B, because whereby you report the problem to the manager or the government because you have discovered that your company is doing something wrong? They're selling unsafe products, hiding important information from customers, breaking the law, and treating employees unfairly. So which option would you take if it was you in that position? Another class discussion. What should you do? It's basically the same question. What should you do? Should you stay quiet, report the problem? Do you stay quiet or you report the problem? And which option do you take? Is a whistleblower a hero or a troublemaker? Do you think in an organization a person who tells the wrongdoings is a hero or is a troublemaker? Why or why not? Should companies protect whistleblowers or they should not protect whistleblowers? Should whistleblowers receive money for reporting problems? Why or why not? So these are the questions that we were supposed to discuss together, but unfortunately you will have to watch these classes by yourself. So just try to do these questions and we can discuss them together, when we do our live Q&As. Yes. Question number 3, right? Joel, a guy, has been accepting small presents from his company supplier for years. Now, one supplier has approached him with an offer to share 50,000 commission in exchange for a lucrative contract award. This action can be defined as somebody, a supplier, is approached you with a lot of money, right? To say this is commission in exchange for a contract award. What kind of action is this? Is this defined as a win-win? Do you consider it a win-win? Do you consider it a bribe? Do you consider it a kickback? Do you consider it business as usual? So try to think and let me know in the upcoming classes, right? These questions, I believe we can do them during our Q&As, but let's just see what question 4 says. So David is a salesperson for a large software company is working with a new client of their needs for new accounting system. He hears them converse. He hears people talking about the need for a third-party consultant to help instill the best business practices. Although David Companies offers the same professional services, David recommends his brother, right, who is an independent consultant in the same field. this would be considered a bribe, a conflict of interest, a case of insider trading, or case of self-dealing. I think I've already put the answers here, right? And the last question would be, what is the most positive outcome for a company or organization from whistleblower activity? So what is the positive, something good that comes out of a whistleblower? So what is the good for a company or an organization from what we call whistleblower activities? So a whistleblower quite often receives a cash reward for their actions. The whistleblower often receives public recognition for their actions. A whistleblower reports shines a spotlight that stimulates immediate action to correct a situation of wrongdoing and a longer term action to prevent such activities from reoccurring. The whistleblower D can receive federal law protection to protect their activities. So which one do you think is the right answer? So now let's move on to corporate social responsibility, right? Let's talk about corporate social responsibility. Then after this, we take another 10-minute break, right? So what is corporate social responsibility? Our learning outcomes under corporate social responsibilities are being able to explain the concept of corporate social responsibility, being able to define corporate social responsibility, being also able to describe the impact of CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, on direct and indirect stakeholders, being able to give examples of corporate social responsibility, and discuss controversies surrounding CSR, like the things that some people agree and some people disagree with surrounding CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. Excuse me. So what is corporate social responsibility? Corporate social responsibility, excuse me, is the ethical role of the corporation in society. So basically, this is the ethical things that a corporation does for society or do for society. So it refers to the actions businesses take or refrain from taking based on the impact of these actions on the external environment and community. So what does the business do or doesn't do for the community? Basically, that is what corporate social responsibility is. What does a business do for the community, or what does the business what doesn't the business do for the community? So we have a lot of information here. Let's try to enlarge and learn more about corporate social responsibility. So doing good, basically corporate social responsibility is doing good, doing right, and doing well, right? So the aim of CSR is to increase long-term profits, right? And shareholder trust through positive public relations and high ethical standards to reduce business and legal risk by taking responsibility for corporate actions. So it isn't enough for companies to generate a profit. So it's not enough just to make more money and keep making more money, right? They also need to generate, to put themselves in these ethical and socially responsible manner. They should do something for the communities. They should do something for these societies where their businesses operate, right? So CSR strategies encourage the company to make positive impact on the environment and stakeholders, that is all the parties who have a stake in the performance and output of the corporation. So protect the environment supports the positive impact under that. Out of that would be protecting the environment, supporting communities, values, and treating of your employees in a fair way, operating ethically and responsibly. So stakeholders these are the all parties who have a stake in the company. So, for example, shareholders invest in the company, right? Employees work for the company. Customers buy the company's products and services. Community, this is where people live and work in areas where companies operate. Supplies, they provide goods, and government states the laws and regulations. Right. So the aim of corporate social responsibility is just give me a second. The aim of corporate social responsibility is to increase long-term profits, right? And shareholder trust through positive public relations. So you need to not to seem, but you need to do positive things for the public, the communities, right? That way, you have long-term profits for your shareholders, for your investors, and high ethical standard to reduce business and legal risk by taking responsibility for corporate action. Right? It's not enough for companies to generate a profit, right? It's not enough. They need to do more than just generating profit. They also need to take care of environments. They also need to look at what they can do for the environment, especially the ones that they operate. So CSR, the company CSR encourages the company to make positive impact of the environment and stakeholders. That's it. All of the parties who have a stake in the performance and output of the corporation. And then we move on to how can we grow CSR. So now we have more and more people that are calling for that are calling for corporate social responsibility to be involved in all organizations. So we have a growing importance of CSR. So areas of CSR include that people are urging for all the companies to pay attention to, include environmental concerns such as green business, poverty, human rights, and animal rights. So each and every company that operates in modern day, they're having pressure from societies, from their consumers, from their stakeholders, basically, to be involved somehow in corporate social responsibilities, mainly environmental concerns, poverty, human rights, and animal rights. So today, businesses are realizing that there is an importance of CSR in attracting employees and customers, because some customers do not buy from companies that, for example, slaughter pigs, slaughter cows, or take milk from cows, right? So CSR is very important, because if you do not practice CSR to a certain extent, you might lose customers, you might lose qualified employees because they do not want to work for you, right? So stakeholders are now demanding that businesses give back to the larger communities in which they operate. Remember, I spoke about, the shareholders, the employees, the customers, the community, the suppliers, and the government. These people are now asking for more from, companies nowadays. So that's why there is a growing importance of CSR. So after the break, after we come back from our 10 minutes break, we will look at a more visual presentation of the growing importance of CSR. So we'll look at the areas of CSR where people are mostly putting emphasis on, which is environmental, poverty, human rights, and animal rights. Why is CSR more important than ever, especially in this modern day? Demands for CSR, and they will also look at the examples of corporate social responsibilities and what they are. So let's take a 10-minute break, and I'll see you after 10 minutes. Okay, so let's continue. We have 30 more minutes left. So let's continue and just finish this up. So we were talking about the growing importance of CSR. So businesses succeed when society succeeds, basically. So we spoke about the areas of customer of CSR, of corporate social responsibility, right? So CSR focuses on important social and environmental issues that affect people, animals, and other things. So the main areas of concern nowadays, the environment, which is what we call green business, poverty, human rights, and animal rights, right? Why is CSR becoming more important than ever, right? Businesses are realizing nowadays the importance of CSR in attracting and maintaining employees. The reason why is because if you are a business that participates in corporate social responsibility, there is a way of attracting, and maintaining your employees and your customers. So you don't have high turnovers, and your customers are loyal and they're always present. Whenever you pump out a new product, anything new, you always have your customers and your employees. Stakeholders are demanding. So the outsiders, the stakeholders are internally and externally demanding that businesses give back to larger communities in which they operate. Why? Because most of the stakeholders believe that these businesses are getting a lot of money from us, so they should give back to the community. So CSR is no longer being nice to have. It's pretty much essential for long-term success. So if you want to survive, if you want to keep running your business for long-term wise, you need to adopt CSR. So demands for corporate social responsibilities. There's several key drivers that are pushing businesses towards CSR. There's several key elements there that are pushing businesses towards a customer corporate social responsibility. I don't know why I keep saying a customer. So the first one is increased pressure from consumers, the customers, the clients, the people that buy the products and the services are putting pressure on corporate, on businesses, to adopt CSR. So consumers are demanding more from businesses to get their hands hard-earned cash, right? So businesses that are perceived as valuing more than just the bottom line are gaining favor with buying public. So a lot of consumers are saying, okay, you are making a lot of money from us, you should also benefit the community, because it's not everyone that earns money to buy your products or to do certain things. And by that we mean the environment, people that are in poverty, things like human rights, animal rights. There's also pressure from shareholders and investors. Socially responsible in investing, SRI has seen an increased attention over the last several decades. Investors want strong and financial returns and positive social impact. So you have some of the investors that are saying, yes, we can invest in you, but you also need to do something for the environment or for social or something that can benefit communities. And you also have supply chain pressure, where consumers pay close attention to the social responsibilities of retailers and service providers, right? So examples of corporate and social responsibility and what they are, we have what we call corporate philanthropy, right? This is when corporations gifts or buys things, food, gifts to charitable organizations. For example, Microsoft donates technology and funds to education and community programs. So if you look, for example, at Africa, Microsoft develops schools, it gives medicine to certain hospitals, it gives computers to children that don't have access to computers. They build schools for children that don't have means of going to school. They do promote the environment and they do help, sustain or improve those people that are in poverty. A cause-related marketing, corporations associating. Let me increase this so that everyone can see what we're talking about. Corporations associating the sales of its products to a program of donations. So if I buy something, what this means is if I buy something, that company or corporation donates or sells something similar. So let's see what it says. So this is a corporation, cause-related marketing means corporations associating, their sales of a product to a program of donations or support for a charitable or civic organization. For example, Tom's donates a pair of shoes to a child in need for every pair purchased. So that means if I buy this one pair of shoes, Tom's donates this to somebody in need, a child in poverty or a child in need, right? Sustainability, we see this with Unilever. Unilever is working to reduce its environmental impact and improve people's health and well-being. So they have programs that are doing this to improve, the population's health and the well-being of the population. And we also have social entrepreneurship and social enterprise. This is the use of business organization and techniques to attain a laudable social goals. So an example is Grameen Bank. It provides small loans to help people in poverty start businesses and improve their lives, right? This is a bit tricky, but it's a 50-50%. Some will become successful, some will fail, but this is with business, right? So they give small loans to these people that are eager to, or that they have a drive to start a business, but obviously they make a background check. They just don't pump money in everyone. And then you have what we call social marketing as an example of CSR, the use of business marketing techniques in a pursuit of social goals. So an example would be Red Cross, right? It uses marketing to promote blood donation and disaster preparedness, right? So CSR benefits everyone: businesses, people, communities, and the planet. So that is the reason why it is getting more and more attention than ever. So basically, the demands for corporate social responsibility. So several drivers, just like I spoke about, are pushing corporations today towards CSR, and they include increased pressure from consumers. Like I said, the consumers are putting more and more pressure on these corporations to be involved or to adopt in CSR. We have also pressure from shareholders and investors, because these are the people that pump money. These are the people that have shares in organizations. Not only do they want to put money in businesses, but they also want businesses to give back to society, and those that are from the lower income households, right? Supply chain pressure. We also looked at corporate philanthropy as an example, cause-related marketing, sustainability, social entrepreneurship, and social enterprise, and also social marketing, right? So controversies, we have some controversies around the subject of CSR, because some people believe it is good, right? It is good for the environment, it's good for societies, it's good for public, it's good for consumers. However, some people believe that majority of the companies that are doing it, they're just doing it for public face, or to seem as if they care about the environment, they care about the society, whereas they don't care about it. And some believe, they even go to an extent to say some are benefiting from it financially. So let's see. From the beginning, CSR has been, the subject of debate. People have been debating: is it good? Is it not good? Is it good? Is it not good? And there's still some critics. Business should focus on profit. That say business should focus on profit. Business should not be focused on helping those in poverty, animal rights, human rights. Some people believe that businesses are started solely for the for it to generate profit, to generate revenue. So these, we call them CSR critics. They urge that the main responsibility for businesses is to maximize return to their shareholders. That's it. That's what they believe in, right? So they believe that the purpose of the purpose of the purpose of the purpose of a business is to make a profit for its owners, right? And create value for the shareholders, not to solve social or environmental problems. So they believe that only shareholders and its investors should get money from the business, and nothing to do with social or environmental problems. So only maximize profits, only get profits, and that's about it, right? We have some that call greenwashing all talk, no action. So they believe that this is just, brainwashing. People are being told, oh, we're practicing greenery, or we're doing, practicing sustainability, whereas it's just all talk and no action is being done. So other critics assert that many so-called CSR activities, are really just publicity, right? Publicity stunts and corporate greenwashing, right? So greenwashing refers to corporations that exaggerate. So let me just increase this so that we can all see. Corporations that exaggerate or say things that misstate, the impact of their environmental actions, not to tell the truth about exactly what's happening, or promote products as being eco-friendly, to say, oh, our products are eco-friendly, whereas in fact they're not. Right, so they misstate that, or we are practicing in greenery, or we are pushing eco-friendly, or our products are benefiting the environment, or we're pushing sustainability, when in fact they don't even do that. So as we can see here, you can see that it 100% natural, eco-friendly. They push this kind of product, but in reality, this is how they are producing, where they're putting a lot of smoke in the air, they're creating pollution, they're dumping poison in the lakes, in the rivers. So they push a product like this in the store. It looks green, it promotes eco-friendly, greenery, sustainability. But if we were to dig deep, we find that the way they're producing these products is actually harmful to the environment. There's pollution, they're polluting, they're poisoning the rivers. So greenwashing can mislead consumers and can also damage trust. The supporters of CSR, they believe that it creates value. So supporters of CSR contend that there are significant, profit-related benefits in socially responsible behavior. So companies use CSR basically to keep the best management talent, right? So like I said in the slides before, the ones above, I mentioned that some companies, some investors are pushing before they invest, they're pushing for companies to invest in CSR, right? And if the company says yes, if the company states that it does promote CSR, it does adopt CSR, it is pushing for CSR, or it's involved in some CSR project or something like that, people would like to work for it. Top talent would like to work for it. So that's what it means here, that companies are using CSR to recruit and keep the best management talent. Companies build partnerships with communities to increase their influence on legislation and public policy, right? So benefits of CSR: stronger reputation and brand loyalty, attracts and retains top talent, builds trust with customers, communities, and investors, improves long-term financial problems. So these are the benefits that, if you are involved in CSR, you can employ the top talent. However, some companies do lie that they're involved in CSR just to employ top talent, have a stronger reputation and brand loyalty, attract and retain top talent, like I mentioned, build trust with customers, communities, and investors, and also improve long-term financial problems. So it's a bit of a very back and forth subject, that topic that is very interesting if you're to dive deep into it. The bigger picture is that CSR is growing day by day. So despite ongoing debate like back and forth, like I just mentioned, CSR is, gathering force and is here to stay. It pretty much means that it's growing. Consumers expect responsible businesses. This is what is happening in 2026. Investors consider ESG, environmental, social, and government factors, right? Society expects businesses to make a positive impact, not just to make profit. Responsible businesses is the future of sustainable success. So as you can see, more is being asked from the business. It's no longer just about providing goods and services. It's also about, what are you doing for the environment? What are you doing for the poor? What are you doing for the animal rights? What are you doing, for certain things that benefit the communities? Okay. So the controversies, this is what we talk about. We spoke about, greenwashing and things like that. So that brings us to the end of our class today. We still have about 15 minutes. So you should be able, after this, you should be able to state what are ethical and legal behavior. How are they different? What is business ethics? You should be able to answer that. What steps do companies take to encourage ethical behavior, right? What are common ethical challenges organizations face? And what is corporate social responsibility? These are the things that you should be able to answer after this lesson. So let's just do a recap of things that we covered today, and then we finish our class. So basically we spoke about, business ethics and social responsibility, where we looked at, ethical and legal behavior, where we said, ethical and business and laws in business. So businesses must do what is right, which is what we call ethical, and what is required, this is what we call legal, right? So we gave examples of ethical behavior and legal behavior. We also went on to talk about what else did we talk about? We talked about business ethics. We spoke about business ethics, where we mentioned that how it helps companies make decisions and should not only think about money, should also think about employees, customers, and society and the environment. We went on to talk about code of ethics, and then what else did we talk about today? Business ethics is the same thing. We talked about company codes of ethics and company and codes of practice, right? So should be able to state the difference between the two, right? Which one is which one, what does it do, the purpose, the nature of it. If I ask you for an example, you should be able to give an example. And these are the differences. This one, code of ethics, focuses on values. Code of practice focuses on actions. Code of ethics is what is right and wrong, and code of practice is how to do the job correctly. Code of ethics is honesty, respect, fairness, whereas the other one, code of practice, is safety, procedures, quality, and guides decisions and guides daily work. So the easiest way to remember this is ethics. How should I behave? Basically, how should I behave? And practice is basically how should I do my job? We went on to talk about how to encourage ethical behavior in an organization. We spoke about 5 strategies that you can use to promote a safer and more ethical workplace, whereby managers should lead by example, teach their employees, encourage where was I? Okay. managers should lead by example, teach employees, encourage their employees to speak up, and also reward good behavior, create a safe workplace. And we gave examples of China, based in China. We spoke about companies like Huawei, Alibaba, Sinopec, ByteDance, and many others. We spoke about, ethical challenges, and we spoke about bribery, kickback. We gave examples of what bribery is, what kickbacks are. We then talked about, ethical issues, conflict of interest, like what is conflict of interest when you work for one company and you work maybe for a competitor, or you work in the evening, or you only hire, your family members, or you only give contracts to your friends. What else did we talk about? We talked about whistleblowers as well. You should be able, and then in the end we spoke about CSR, which is a very, very big subject on its own. So you should be able to answer, like I said, these questions: what are ethical and legal behavior? How are they different? What is business ethics? What steps do companies take to encourage ethical behavior? What are common ethical challenges and organizations face? What are common ethical challenges that organizations face? What is corporate social responsibility? So with that, I will leave you for now. And if you have any questions, we can talk about them on Saturday, or whenever we do our Q&A live sessions. And let me know if there's anything that you want me to clarify or explain further. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in another lesson, which is going to be chapter 3. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you. Take care. Have a good day, good night, and take care of yourself.